over, and ShoWTimE had it actually in game 2, but we are getting amongst it here. It is going to be Juggernaut. The pig, take it away. Who's this fine gentleman in the bottom left?
Well, we love to see him tussle that head, get super focused and intense on that camera. He is, of course, the Finnish Phenom, the 2018 World Champion. In the bottom left, it is Serral.
And in the top right here, representing Berlin International Gaming, he's big. He's ShoWTimE.
I always like that they spell that the same way I capitalize my alias as well, my ID. I'm always like, ooh, is someone talking about me on Twitter? No. Oh, it's just Toby's team, no worries. I think, just to preface this match a little bit, for anyone who's saying, oh, all three are predicting Serral, massive favorite, one-sided matches. I think against a lot of players, I predict Serral to have one-sided Zerg versus Protoss matches, not against ShoWTimE, not ever. I really feel like even when he wins, like there's two players actually. Hero Marine kind of has the same thing against Serral, where I feel like the matches can be really super duper close and always really fun to watch. They happen to almost always end with Serral coming out on top, but there's always points on the board for the other player. There's always a lot of close matches. But actually sealing a whole best-of-5 series is kind of the thing which we, I guess, seem to be, right now doubting ShoWTimE on. That being said, maybe we are overselling things a little bit there. I think a lot of us have noted Serral not as comfortable in the mid to late game, right, as he was a year ago. He looks like he wants to kill Protoss players, and ShoWTimE's the kind of guy who loves being the defender. If he can get good reads, good scouting on Serral's moves and defend a few of his blows, I think ShoWTimE will be happy playing late game.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that while you would normally be the Zerg going, hey, I want to go in the late game because all of my tools in the late game are great. Right now, Zergs, especially like Serral's mentioned it multiple times, and it was talked about actually in the TSL 6 broadcast, that Serral doesn't want that late game ZVP. That's the reason why Serral has not picked a lot of these big maps. He wants them out of there. He doesn't want those giant, huge, easy 4-base maps like you put it there for ShoWTimE. And there's going to be a Stargate opener here, which he's been loving in this matchup, and it's been not just the one Stargate, it's usually two, and it's usually Void Rays. But, that is kind of where we're at right now with PvZ, where ShoWTimE wants to get to that later stage, especially if he's opening for Stargate, and Serral's going to potentially punish it early with something a little bit more all-in. But yeah, just never seems to want to go to that late game, just sort of sitting there defensively anymore, which was Serral back when he was the world champion in 2018. So he's changed a lot.
Did Serral's Overlord, it poked in the main, did he actually see the Stargate, or did he pull back just before he saw that?
I think he saw it, yeah.
Ooh, oh, that's great. So he can pull his Overlords quite far back here. Interestingly, he's not pulling them all the way back yet, which to me makes him, it kind of feels like he's expecting Oracle instead of Void Ray. Because if you think, 100%, Void Rays, you kind of just pull all your Overlords way back. But you're going to notice Serral has good coverage. Overlords on the edges of the map, Overlords out on the map. He's got some Ling spotters out as well. So he really wants to see where these Oracles can come from, so the Queens can move in front of the base, start landing hits on the Oracle, force it to disengage. And if you can defend those first 1 or 2 dives of the Oracle without losing any drones, it's just a good head start. This early stage, just keeping 1, 2, 3 extra drones alive starts to build up, and that's where you can skyrocket into that big 3-base economy.
What is this, 2019 pig? That's not a Void Ray. I'm seeing 2 Oracles here from ShoWTimE. This is the most standard opening of 2019. It's like all the Stargate PvZ openers for like a year and a half. He's going back to the old favorite here.
Yeah. The problem with the Void Ray opening is if you don't get your Oracles early enough, the Zerg can just delay the spores forever, until there's actually an Oracle there. And sometimes they'll say, look, even if I know there's an Oracle after the Void Ray, I don't build spores because I got 5 Queens by then. I can just leave, move my Queens where they're needed. And if the Zerg isn't forced to build Spore Crawlers, what you're having is a big delay on the impact of your immediate damage. And this is what the Stargate kind of needs to do. You might look at this and go, how often do Oracles kill a lot of drones? Well, no, they don't kill that many. That you're not only forcing 5, 6 Queens out early, you're forcing a Spore Crawler in each base. If you can get a few drones on that while keeping the Oracles alive for later use, they're doing that damage. The problem with the Void Rays is players have got so good at evacuating their Overlords off the map that players weren't finding much damage with them anymore.
Speaking of damage, Oracle's coming in here, getting a couple probes. Robo's starting here for ShoWTimE, so he's just sort of transitioning. Twilight Council probably around the corner here. Serral's gotten himself Overlord speed. Lair's just on the way now, though, so Dropper Lord tech is not available. I'm keeping an eye on that, by the way, because I know that Serral's been loving that to punish Stargate builds. But considering it's a double Oracle opening, Serral probably not feeling like that's necessary at the moment. This is going to be a little bit more normal from ShoWTimE. We will keep an eye on it, though, as that lair finishes up. Serral right now just playing very defensively, covering all of these bases literally and figuratively, and seeing in the main base here with those speed overlords, just gateways going down, so doesn't have to worry about any scary air units, apart from these 2 oracles coming in for another flyby.
Oh, great defense again. And Twilight and Forge being spotted even before they finish building is so good, because what Serral's doing there is he's kind of checking things off and going, oh yeah, you're going to the latter stage. Because if someone goes Twilight Forge, it's about 2 minutes until they can turn that into an attack, until charge and +1 is done. So this allows Serral to just hold down that worker key, build overlords, and he's going to need to go back in and scout in a short while and double check, hey, wait a second, are you taking gases on that 3rd base? Are you looking for a 4th base? And Serral's kind of just going to be saying, do I need to mass Roaches, Zerglings and be safe? Or, you know, or can I drone further and even get a 4th base full of workers? And right now, Serral already at 66 drones. He's going up to 70 workers. He's very slow to start a 4th base here, and an infestation pit goes down. Okay. All right. I haven't seen this too much on Jagannatha, but this is an older style, right? It's all about your queens can pop out of the Nidus Worm or move across the map to just push back oracles, and then the swarm hosts either run forward and throw locusts, or they pop out of a Nidus Worm and throw locusts, and it's just going to be mass Roach Queen, swarm host. So this is kind of the maximum amount of drones that Serral wants for a while. So it's not a big late game economy. It's going to be about finding attack avenues and doing damage. But up until now, ShoWTimE's Oracle's being very efficient, and he's actually getting quite a few worker kills here and there. I don't know if he's seen exactly what's happening yet.
I don't think he saw the infestation pit with the tag pig. The hallucinated Phoenix might come a look. But yeah, I mean, you were saying that it's been a while since you've seen it. ShoWTimE actually had to deal with this, and he very nearly held it. I think it was this map that Serral did this to him, and I think it was TSL 6. And I think it was this map where it happened. And there's the infestation pit scout. So now ShoWTimE's know what he's up against, and now it's time to spam some of those defenses, get those Archons up. I don't believe he started Storm or had it finished just yet. So he does have an Archon and Immortal in this War Prism at the moment, and it is going to be the worm from Down Under coming in for the Australian cast. It's on brand very shortly here with those Hell Muffins, those Swarm Hosts.
Oh, so he's trying to zone it back, make sure he can't get too far forward. That creep is already very far forward. The first 10 Swarm Hosts starting to now walk across the map. ShoWTimE realizing he cannot let Serral launch those units straight into his base. He needs to try to force the Locust out on the map. But you can see that Roach Ravager Ling army with the Queens backing it up is kind of scary. The Ling drop in the main does get deflected there. Nice warp in. Quick response by ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE's all over it so far. He's looking really solid. Now he's got a battery and a cannon in the natural wall. Another battery in front of the 3rd. But those Locusts have found the launch pad. They're going to go into the main base. ShoWTimE, he's going to take big damage in the main.
He certainly is. Serral trying to get something done with this Dropper Lord with 8 Lings in as well, but those Locusts look like they're just going to target down the main Nexus. Big fight at the front here, obviously, with Immortals and the Sentries. Locusts just on A move, so they're not getting the main Nexus. They are getting some probe kills. Lings to the natural about to do the exact same thing. ShoWTimE's armies on the front door. Nothing really at home except for these Oracles and these defensive Warpins to stop these Lings. Already losing a dozen probes. A rough start to the defense for ShoWTimE. Obviously, Serral's drone count not super high, so he can afford to lose some and still be okay here. But he has to get rid of this Roach Queen force at the front with the Ravagers. It's so tough.
Yeah, the overcharged battery on the natural is starting to heal up those Archons, but as you said, he's got to get rid of this army. If he can't get rid of this, another Locust Wave is already launching into his main base, and that's a big problem. Oh my god, these numbers, he just can't quite push this army back. The Roaches, the Ravagers, and the Queens hanging around. Finally, those numbers start to disappear, but not before another Locust Wave comes in. There's no battery overcharge, and that's a dead natural.
Goodbye, Natural Nexus, and I feel like the wind is leaving the sails here of ShoWTimE. Serral taking a huge supply lead, and a lot of that is an army. The Swarm Host still sharking around the outside of the main base, potentially threatening another Locust Wave for the main. Should just be devastating for ShoWTimE. He's still focusing on getting rid of the Queens and the Roaches and Ravagers. He has gotten rid of a lot of the Queens, but this is a big Ravager morph. He's got the acceleration zone here to get his units in or out of the battle, depending on what Serral wants to do. ShoWTimE realizing, oh, this is turning into an overextension. That's a lot of Roaches, that's a lot of Ravagers, and here comes that Locust Wave for the main. Oh, man, it feels like he's falling apart at the seams here a little bit in game 1.
ShoWTimE is obviously very far behind. He has the better army, though. The Immortal Archon count's growing. Locusts go into the main. Zealots are on top of them. The Locusts are going to clear up every Zealot and have time to spare to just cleanse that mineral line in the main base. 10 probes die almost instantly. Serral runs forward, just nabs a Ravager and quickly pulls back. ShoWTimE here, losing units on every side, and even his natural was under assault there for a moment. This is just a splendid frontal push here from Serral. He just had enough Roach Ravager to hold position. He used this to secure that offensive Swarm Host spot, and look at this. The Swarm Hosts don't have a lot of cover right now, but as long as the Roach Ravager keeps ShoWTimE occupied, occupied. There's going to be one more Locust Wave, and that's going to annihilate the third base.
Great Prism juggling here from ShoWTimE. He's really getting a lot of value out of these couple units. But again, the Locust, like you mentioned, they are just going to make this extremely difficult for ShoWTimE if he sticks around the game and he decides, that's enough. All right, fine. Take game one. We'll try it again in game two and reset the board, because that one is done and dusted, baby. That was all Serral in game one.
Yep, a really nice, decisive push there from Serral. I mean, you don't have a lot of follow-up with that style. A lot of people look at these games and they kind of go, oh, really? He just kind of rolls him over there with that frontal push. You've got to realize it's +1 attack and roach speed. Those are your upgrades. You've got to pack a swarm host. There's no fourth base going down early. There's no second Evo. There's no Baneling speed. There's no Hydra or Lurker tech. And we've seen how swarm hosts look if they can't get that forward launch pad. If ShoWTimE can defend that first wave a little bit better, if he could push back the Roach Ravager while that first wave went into the main, it's all fine for him. And I actually thought he was going to be able to do it, but it looked like Serral just had the numbers. ShoWTimE kind of half engaged a few times. A few of his Zealots bled out. Maybe he just needed to be a little more decisive, engage that army the moment the Locusts were going towards his main, split the Roach Ravager Queen, and just take the fight. It's so dicey because that army looks so chunky and meaty. But I feel once Locusts are in your main and you can't deal with the army, it almost feels like maybe your opportunity's just gone. The window is closed.
I'm with you on that. In fact, I remember when the fight initially started, and when Serral first knocked on the front door there of ShoWTimE, he had actually a triple prong happening. It was like the Locust hitting the main base, a speed dropper lord with 8 Lings in it, also threatening probes. And that was the first Lings actually killed like 12 probes, along with the Locust in the main base. The Natural and the main were getting hit at the same time. And there was the Roach Ravager Queen force on the front door, which was tussling with the Immortals and the Archons. It was way too much for most people in the world to handle, and ShoWTimE is one of those guys that can do that, but unfortunately did not there on Jagannatha for game one. We are heading to Oxide for game two, though. Let's see if this fine gentleman in the top right here, from Germany, from Big Esports, can get it done. This is ShoWTimE, Die Mauer.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side, representing against Esports, none other than Serral. I think the other thing potentially running through ShoWTimE's head is the opportunity to do Zealot run-bys if he encounters that style again. I think definitely if you don't have enough to just do the frontal engage, and Serral's brave enough to push so far forward, it feels like, well, you'd actually be better off hitting the mineral lines of Serral, cutting off his rally, his reinforce, and doing something like that. ShoWTimE kind of banked on being able to overwhelm that army on the front, on being able to control the space out front his bases. And as we saw, he just wasn't quite able to maintain that territory. So if you commit to something like that and then you're not able to achieve your primary goal, you've got to kind of ask yourself some questions. But that being said, I mean, that is the game in the past, and I think ShoWTimE's going to need to let that memory fade and wash away, because Serral is a man with many different styles at his disposal.
That is right. He's a man of many skills, and a lot of them involve dismantling Protosses. Keep in mind, guys, that like this, you know, while ShoWTimE is extremely good, Serral's current win rate in this particular matchup, and we're not talking about like, you know, Joe Masters 1 on the ladder. We're talking to like professional Protosses, the best Protosses in the world. His win rate against these people is in the 80th percentile. It's absolutely ridiculous right now.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. He's such a high win rate, and I mean, we often look at someone and go, "Oh, this guy's a Protoss versus Zerg expert. He might have a chance." You know, that's kind of where we get to. But ShoWTimE in the past has looked very good against certain styles, but I actually think psychologically that is one of the most frustrating builds to lose a map 1-2 as ShoWTimE. So it's kind of hard to go into the next map with a cleansed palette, with just a zero fear sort of attitude. And you know what? These openings are actually really good for Serral, and this leads into why he was able to get to such a good position. The fact that his first Overlord just keeps poking into the main, spotting the Stargate. For me, I look at this and I say, look, this is something, there is a mini game in Protoss vs. Zerg. If I was on ShoWTimE's side here, I would probably be in between the maps saying, hey, wait a second, let's hide that Stargate behind the Natural or in the very back of the main. Let's go for a Stalker first and snipe this Overlord down. You know, Serral's offering it up to us. And I think it's definitely something where the fact that Serral's getting a read on the tech so early, it's allowing him to just tailor all the little details of his response here. And it's giving him such an efficient opening.
And this time, things are switching up for ShoWTimE. At the moment, everything looks pretty normal for Serral. Not really any huge differences. His third got delayed a little bit there by that probe, by like 5-6 seconds, but everything else is looking hunky-dory for the Finnish player. And we are going Void Ray first here for Dimauer. Now, with the Void Ray, we have to keep an eye on whether or not it's going to be multiple Void Rays, which will give us an idea of what this game looks like. Last time they played on this map, there were multiple Stargate Void Rays from ShoWTimE, trying to go up into that the big Sky Toss Death Ball, of course, but I do believe the taxi of the Deutsch variety was what Serral used to shut that down. But it is going to be straight into Oracle next, so a pretty normal, I'd say this is the most meta opening, the most regular opening in PvZ right now, is Void Ray into Oracle, and then going from there, just to get rid of the Overlords.
Yeah, and a lot of people going for a really quick third base off the back of this, like, you know, there we go, 3 minutes 45. That is such a quick third. And it forces the game to the next stage a little bit. Parting recently has been doing some really cool build orders where he'll then also take the gases on his third base pretty early just to show the Zerg player, look, I'm taking gas. And then he'll do a 7-gate Glaive Adept. And it's one of the latest Glaive Adepts attack ever. But it's such a mind game because he makes it look so much like he's massing Void Rays off multiple Stargates when he's just built 1 or 2. And then he rocks up with like 30 Adepts. And it's such a ridiculous strategy that he's pulled out multiple times recently. So that's something that keeps in mind in terms of a mind game. But for now, the first Oracle does fly in and not going to find anything. Ouch, takes a lot of damage as well. Yeah, unfortunate of a start there for ShoWTimE.
Indeed. And once again, 2 games in a row, we've seen Overlord speed from Serral. A lot of Zergs will skip that in this matchup and just rely on Lings and slow Overlords to give them information or, you know, see a lack of something and then make decisions based upon it. We do have the Roach Warren and the Lair coming up here for Serral. There's 2 Void Rays at a time being made here for ShoWTimE. That Creep Tumor blocking off the wall, so he does have to pick that off so he can make sure he can get a bit more of a comfortable wall in there in the natural. Unfortunate Creep Tumor, but not the biggest of deals. And this Overlord is going to be the one that confirms the extra Stargates for Serral, at least theoretically. Void Ray's on the hunt.
Will it though? Prismatic alignment. Oh, prismatic alignment just a little bit too slow there, and does end up, of course, spotting the double Stargate Void Ray. So it's interesting. I feel like this opening sometimes does not look that great for Protoss, and in other games it feels like it just forces the game up to the 8, 9, 10 minute mark. It forces the Zerg to a deeper stage. Now, the big question is, it looks like Serral's playing that longer game himself. Yes, he's got a pretty quick lair, but it's not super fast. For me, I always wonder, where do you take your 4th base? I like going in a straight line along the bottom of the map, where, yep, looks like he likes that as well, until the Void Ray stops it.
Yeah.
The reason you want that one is they can't really bounce from that base to another angle. So as long as you get creep over there, you move your anti-air, you know, it's okay. Whereas if you take the base on the left, which ShoWTimE's trying to push him towards doing, Void Rays can always snipe that hatch on the 4th, jump up into the main, potentially snipe the hive or the lair, and obviously that's a real bummer if you let that happen. So Serral being forced into what I would consider a slightly less optimal 4th base, but it's yet to be seen whether ShoWTimE can punish that. Lings here posturing. Looks like the Void Rays are trying to pick off a little bit of creep with the Oracle, not finding anything too much just yet. And the charge +1 Templar Archives and Robotics transition is underway. So what is so cool about this style is you build enough air units to really force the Zerg to invest in anti-air, and then you just swap back into a traditional ground style. And this means you've already got 2 Stargates. Any later swap to carriers, even Tempests, is just going to be a bit more set up. You've already got these Void Rays, which just kind of, anytime the anti-air runs out in a fight, they'll clean everything up. They're a great harassment squad. And you forced all these Queens out, which the Zerg doesn't really want to have in a big fight later on in the game. They're too slow. They block the rest of your army. So you're forcing the Zerg to build a lot of units that can't really be used defensively.
Yeah, this is forcing the Zerg into an army that's going to be very weak to the next phase of the plan here for ShoWTimE, which is, you know, Storm, Charge, +1, like you mentioned, like you listed out. Dropping the main base, though, looks largely unscouted by ShoWTimE. Took a while there to react by pulling the probes. None of his static defense is done either, so this is very annoying to deny that mining on the main. A very inexpensive move from Serral, by the way. Like, it's just 8 Lings and an Overlord, which is going to escape.
Had to recall to his natural as well, because he didn't have energy in the main. And, you know, just before the cannon finishes, a nice little bit of damage. What does that cost? 8 Zerglings. So, yeah, free.
Yeah. And a scout. And a scout. He saw the Templar Archives being chrono boosted. So Serral knows what ShoWTimE's doing here.
And up into Hydra Bane. I mean, this is cool that Serral's keeping him busy, slowing him down, because Serral's already taking a 5th base. 82 workers going up to 85. The Hydras are coming out. Double evolution chamber upgrades. Focusing on range over the melee. So not prioritizing the +2 banelings or anything like that, but will eventually get there. And what I'm curious to see here for Serral is it really going to be just endless waves of Hydra Bane assaulting, looking to deny this 4th, keep ShoWTimE off the 5th base? Or are we going to see a bit of a quicker Hive, Aspire, and potentially just a swap into a round of Broodlords? As we know, if you can just get a round of Broodlords out before there's any Tempest, you can just smash High Templar Immortal Archon on the ground, especially with Hydra Bane supporting it. That's a super powerful army. But right now, Serral looking like he wants to max out on Hydra Bane. No sign of an infestation pit in sight. I think he's going to be setting up for a big assault on that 4th base.
Does certainly look like it. I mean, he's basically maxed, time to do something with that army. Overlord on the south side there, kind of getting wind of some charge lots, seeing them amass on the right side. Maybe setting up for a shift click there from ShoWTimE and trying to hit that 3rd base location. Serral's loading up some Banes here for some Bane Rain, good old school strat, and trying to bait out a storm there from the High Templar. ShoWTimE does not take the bait. Oh, those Banes looking for those probes, man. That tasty little probe line.
And that Zealot run by gets cleaned up, which is always a very nice trade when you can catch those Zealots. Quick reaction from ShoWTimE, but you're not going to be able to build cannons on top of that army. He's got some Storm here, but not a lot of meat. So keep in mind, as the Baneling count grows, that's going to be hard for ShoWTimE to contend with. Right now, it is a mass Hydra army for Serral. This is such a crazy Hydra count. Even with all this Storm, it's going to be hard to clean that many units. Now the Banelings are here, the High Templar have to be careful.
They do indeed, and they're dropping some storms. Definitely get some decent connections on the Banelings here on the south side. The Hydras on the north still in very high numbers, though. Getting on top of those Void Rays. Like you mentioned, there's no front line here of charge lots to buffer for the High Templar and for the Voids, which means that once the storms have been weathered, literally, he can just A-move.
Absolutely annihilating the 4th base and the entire Protoss army, which is the more important part. If you can get rid of the Protoss army, it doesn't matter if they keep the 4th base up. But getting the 4th and the entire army and keeping his 5th alive on just enough Banelings to clear up the Zealots
GG.